I'm Pheby. I'm a resident of Northenden. I'm an active member in community issues.
Great, thank you. Can you give us any examples of consultations and your experience of them, please?
Well, as you're aware, we've been fighting a campaign to preserve our library here. Another 4 wards have been fighting to preserve their libraries, and we had this whole consultation which in our view quite definitely was just lip service. It was actually, in my view, a complete lie. There was no consultation, and I'll give you a reason why I believe this. As soon as we heard they're going to close our library and there's going to be consultations about it, we organised here locally. And the first action we took was a march with local citizens and so on. Now, just before the march set off, a lady approached me and said, "Graham, you're wasting your time on this campaign, starting a campaign," because it was the start. I said, "How do you mean? There's a 3-month consultation going on. They're going to come down and listen to community groups and so on." She said, no, in Parkway Green, they've made a space for a community outreach for when they close the library. I said, "No, this is rumour." She said, "Graham, I work there. I've been told we're making a space in Parkway Green for the outreach when the library is closed." Now, this is why I say the consultation was a lie, a complete and utter lie. This was already being prepared before they even met with any community groups. So that's one story I can give you for consultation. Our library issue actually has highlighted much bigger issues in the fact that our council do not listen. I don't think the executive listens to councillors, let alone community groups. I heard a councillor the other day say that when this idea of what to do with the 14.5 million windfall from the airport came up, that the executive just told the councillors, "This is what we're going to do." And this particular councillor was quite shocked that they hadn't been consulted, that it hadn't been discussed and so on. So if the councillors are not consulted by the executive, what chance people in the communities like us, ordinary Joes, we're really up a gum tree. So you know, a recent scrutiny committee, I was pleased to note that Councillor Flanagan, they asked for ideas from anyone in the community about consultation, and people put some ideas forward. I was one of them, and at the end of it, Councillor Flanagan, I think he took on board the fact that only 20.1% of the population of Manchester vote for our Labour councillors. 60% don't even vote at all. Now, the mandate for our Labour Party, I believe, is not, we can do what we like. This is not 20.1%. It's not a mandate to do what you like. It's a mandate to reach out to the other 80% and find out why 60% don't vote at all. Why they say it doesn't matter what we say, what we do, they will do, meaning they, the council, will do what they like. Well, of course, we'd have examples of that with our library consultation, But anyway, Councillor Flanagan spoke to the officers and said, find out from other councils where there is an overwhelming how do you call it, majority of a particular party, how they reach out to their community and discuss with other activists what can be done. And I thought that was a very positive move, actually, what can be done. And I'm hoping that they will reach out. I was reminded of this. I watched the Labour Party conference, particularly Ed Miliband's speech, and he said the real qualification for leadership is to reach out and listen to people. That is the real qualification of leadership, to reach out and listen. And he said, only in that way can you walk in the shoes of others, meaning you can empathise with the way other people live and how they feel and so on. And this is what our councils should be doing. They should be reaching out to the 100%, including Labour voters, but particularly the 80% who don't vote. They should be reaching out to them and listening, and quite frankly, they do not do this. And we, in this Northenden, over our library issue, have had a clear example of it. Like us, to rebuild trust, simply, quickly and cheaply, would be to say, okay, when we said we'd close the libraries, we said the cupboard was bare, there was no money. Now this windfall has come along of 14.5 million. We can now keep those libraries open because we have no reason to close them anymore, because the money, which wasn't there before, is now there. And we can put a proportion of that money to sustain those 5 libraries until such time as the period of austerity has passed. I have to tell you that in this Northenden we have no other community, publicly owned community facility. It is the only one. And they're going to close it. And what are they going to do? We've been told that they will sell the land on the open market. So our only community-owned facility is now going to be privatised. I mean, this is not the way I would expect our city council to behave. To private, there's no other. They could change one of their core objectives. Now, in the council's corporate core business plan for 2013-2015, it states on page 4 that one of their 3 core objectives is radical reform of public services to reduce dependency on public services and so reduce expenditure. Now, for me, that is a blanket catch-all statement. No mention is made of the limits to the number of public services which will be reduced and by what degree that they can be reduced. So it gives carte blanche for any and all reductions. However, this is what I wrote in a, missive. However, one pointer to the intention of the author of this policy is the word radical, which means extreme, fundamental, far-reaching, and uncompromising. Secondly, such a desire is incompatible with the basic philosophy of the labour movement. This policy of, radical reform of public services to reduce dependency on public services and so reduce expenditure is more in tune with Tory philosophy, which asserts that either these services are unnecessary or that they can be farmed out to private enterprise so that an additional profit margin is loaded onto the taxpayer. Or that if the potential for private profit is negligible, the council can abdicate the burden of financing those public services whilst relying on the community to volunteer. Surely we don't pay taxes to finance public services ourselves. It's pure big society territory, in my view. This is something that the Tories are giving up. But we seem to have a policy, a core policy, which is big society. Reduce expenditure by cutting public services and then rely on the volunteer sector, the community that's actually paying the taxes for these, to run them. They could scrap that core objective. We want to pay our taxes for public services to service the community, to serve the community. We don't want to pay our taxes necessarily just to build covered walkways in the centre of Manchester City. And you know, that we know that the cuts, the swinging cuts applied by the Tory and Lib Dem government have really trounced communities in the north particularly. We know that, we accept that. But there is money left in the pot. Now, it's a question of how you prioritise the spending of that. Now, in my view, there's no Mancunian who's going to say that it is better to close your 5 libraries and your swimming baths and your community services and rather build a covered walkway instead. In fact, at the Highways and Planning Committee, where this came up, Sir Gerald Kaufman MP said that to spend £3.5 million on a covered walkway was grotesquely disproportionate at a time when public services were being cut. Now, for me, his sort of view of prioritisation is that what one would expect from a Labour Party and a Labour Council. Clearly, his view and my view are not the view of the Labour Party at Manchester City Council, at present anyway, at least not of those in power. And the people in power are a small group, they're executive, a very, very small group. They are the people who control all the decisions. And I think to a certain, in a city like ours, where we have one political party in huge control, there has to be some group, some methodology for holding these decisions by the executive to accountability, to scrutinise them. They should be put out there so people can have a chance to, the councillors, community groups, have a chance to say what they feel about these decisions before they're made. Even our councillors don't have a chance to be consulted really. They're just told, that's it.